back to you. And I have recollections of a praying mantis type being. That one resonates.
You must understand that there is what might be called a hive hierarchy within that particular race that you call the Greys. And as such, what you perceive to be the mantis-like being is what might be termed the upper echelon type being that will cause for the organization of certain sorties onto your planet. Certain specific programs are overseen by that particular group or level of being.
So they are under the original race?
They are under, but also to some degree equivalent. There are influxes from other systems that are representative of that race, and you will find that what it mostly represents is another agreement between the Anunnaki and another race that is insectoid altogether. But in recognizing the similarity between the hive mentality of that race and the hive mentality of the Greys that have been created, there have been formations of relationships between the Greys and that race as well. They are therefore to some degree part of the overall program, and yet to some degree independent of it, but working with the Anunnaki on a certain level. There are aspects of this which are very difficult to describe in your language, which there are no analogies for in your social structure. Therefore, what we have said is basically all that we really can explain about that particular aspect of their society at this particular moment. Although we will tell you one more thing. One moment. These mantis-like beings are only partly physically that way. What you are perceiving is something more similar to a Grey or a hybrid of Grey and another species that is very, very close to existence in a non-physical dimension. As your perception in third dimensionality perceives these beings, you perceive them to be long, tall, thin, squashed, flattened, because they are, in your estimation, pressed between dimensions. It is a distortion of your consciousness that allows you to perceive them that way, or I will put it this way, that is how a physiological form is most representative of their consciousness when they project themselves into your reality.
Can you talk about how the praying mantis creatures relate to the Greys? Are they a leader? Are they the ones that lead them or guide them? Or
as we have said in the past, the idea of leading is a misnomer in this context. It would be the same thing as saying or asking, does one part of your brain lead the other? They are of one mind, yet there are different components that serve different functions. They may represent what you would call a more organizational aspect, but they do not lead any more than your index finger leads your small finger on your hand when you grasp something. Do you follow this analogy?
Could you go into it a little more? I'm not quite
If there is
sure.
difficulty in this, it is probably because you are an individuated consciousness and do not understand the hive mentality. It is a single entity. A single entity. Do you understand?
Yes.
If it is a single entity, how then can any one component actually be called a leader? It is one entity. Different components may have different abilities to organize the information within the one, and the mantis, as you say, is a higher order organizational aspect.
Okay.
But it does not correlate to what you and your civilization call a leader. For there are no leaders and followers where there is only one that acts simultaneously within itself in all components at once.
Uh-huh.
Do you understand the difference? It may seem subtle, but it is not.
Okay.
It is a profound difference.
Where did the praying mantis originate?
Where? When?
Yeah.
We will ask permission to give you an answer that makes sense to you. One moment.
Thank you.
their progenitors, which are not what they are, but that which gave them form, emerged from what you would recognize as, in your language, the black hole at the center of your galaxy. From where before that, in space and time, there is not language to translate, but of a dimension you do not understand except in your deepest, darkest dreams, not meaning that in a negative way. There is a substance of consciousness and intention in that reality that is the knife edge of intention itself, the precision of focus beyond what you can imagine in human terms, a single-mindedness of existence beyond anything that your multi-dimensional, multi-purpose, multi-expressive human consciousness would ever deem to be something that could exist and still allow there to be intelligence behind it. Yet it is a burning intelligence, a burning focus of consciousness, a dimension unto itself that gave birth to several kinds of forms, one form of which, emerging through these gateways you call black holes, formed the progenitors for what you now know as the founders, which are different than the progenitors, but based on silicon as a life form.
On what?
Silicon.
Silicon.
Yes.
There is a civilization, as you describe it, that call themselves the Onatayu. They are particularly fascinated by the idea that Earth is becoming the sixth hybrid race. They're kind of in a position to consult on certain things about that evolutionary process, but we're not necessarily allowed to say exactly what that consultation contains yet, but we are allowed to say this much, that they are consulting with both the mantis beings, that many of you report in the idea of your encounters with the hybridization agenda. They consult with other beings about the idea of evolutionary processes going on in the universe. They are very, very intuitive and very strongly connected to the very idea of what DNA really is, of what evolution really is, and all the different forms that allow different forms of life to spread throughout the cosmos.
The Greys had to remove their emotions so they could do what needed to be done. And I'm just wondering if you could clarify a bit more specifically what it was that needed to be done.
The hybridization project is monumental and expansive, and they understood it would take a long time to achieve. Therefore, they knew from their experience as human beings that emotionality might get in the way of their efficiency because there was absolutely no time to waste whatsoever. They had to, in a sense, become very, very coordinated, and therefore they had to remove the emotional component in order for them to function as a unit, as a hive mind, in the most efficient way to get the highest degree of efficiency to achieve their goal, because it was absolutely necessary that they do so or they would die out. Therefore, to use your colloquial vernacular, they hired another species, the mantis beings, to oversee the entire operation, while they simply were capable then of letting go of all of those things that might be distracting to them and function in a very machine-like way to achieve the goal they were attempting to achieve, while overseen by those who could guide them. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question, which brings me to another question. Do the mantis beings have emotions in the humans?
Absolutely.
Open your hearts, open your eyes, open your minds, and you will know the path before you that is toward us.
The praying mantis is a very, very, very high vibrational being. Almost at the angelic realm level. That's why they are the overseers of the hybridization agenda.
Okay, great.
They are the guardians of evolution.